Okay, our speaker first giving readings and then with his talk will be Bob Hill, who is not a stranger to probably anybody here. And I'm really glad that the mountains tug at you. That's good.
For 27 years, I have a tradition. For 27 years, I have given a Christmas talk in December. So that's my personal tradition, and I thank you again for allowing me to do that. My reading I found quite accidentally. It was something I wrote a long time ago and had forgotten, and I couldn't find a reading and just found this quite by accident. This story is not about personal morality by committing to a specific God or Son of God. The symbolism of the story affirms the power we have to transform our lives and the world we live in. Religious enlightenment is the teleological unfolding of the human consciousness. It requires a perpetual personal transformation. In this transformation, we recognize a relationship with all that exists, and we are staggered by the wonders that surround us. As we begin to experience our oneness, we can experience the holy dimension of our own personal existence and realize that life is not a rehearsal for something to come in an afterlife. Life is not dust in the wind waiting to be blown to another dimension. It is a gift that must be left better than we were first aware of it. When we keep working to achieve greater consciousness, we somehow stumble onto the idea that in some way we are related to something timeless, something that is eternal. We are all the Buddha, waiting under the Bodhi tree, but we must seek like Buddha and not settle for superstitious answers and proclaim that we have found the truth. Well, it is that time of year when all throughout our community we will begin to see the same two signs in front yards and on church marquees. And the sign reads, "Put Christ back into Christmas, and Jesus is the reason for the season." This is my answer. This is my sign. We human beings have always been questioners, searchers, wanderers, dreamers, and sky watchers. We have been heretics from the very beginning, constantly questioning every truism, every dictum. Our journey has been a very curious one. In terms of cosmic time, we are most definitely the newcomers. The history of the universe, in terms of today's date, was already 99% complete when we made our less than startling arrival. Upon examination of the facts, we must conclude that we are not special in the universe. Yet we are unique. We are uniquely aware of our own mortality. So we have invented a myriad of ways to postpone it, to avoid it, and even deny it. To date, however, we must all go the way of our predecessors. We are not even special in the fact that we are made of star stuff, but our uniqueness is that we know it. This may explain our curious relationship with the stars. We watch and plot their every movement. We even dream of visiting these distant relatives. The movement of these heavenly bodies have determined many of our behaviors. We have planted and harvested, built, moved, and even married as dictated by the stars. Our fortune has been intractably linked to those lighted dots in the night sky. We have honored them in 1,000 ways. Because we are prone to anthropomorphizing, we have seen our sky gods in human form and animal form, clearly drawn in the constellation of random stars. Some of our very first gods were these heavenly bodies. We have always looked to the heavens for help in the fervent desire that there is something out there bigger than we are. The sun has always played a major role in the way we interpret life. We were able to calculate early in our history that the sun left us in the fall and returned to us again in the spring planting. Ancient cultures built structures like Stonehenge on the Salisbury Plain of England, or the Sun-Dagger in Arizona, to chart the movement of the sun and other cosmic bodies. By the use of such structures, we were able to tell the exact time of the winter solstice, the summer equinox, and other important dates. Once again, we are approaching the winter solstice, as we have done for hundreds of thousands of years. It is a time of gathering, so we all gather to celebrate. All over this globe, people will be gathering. We may call it by different names, but the gathering is as eternal as the migration of the geese or the spawning of the salmon. We gather in celebration as the sun begins its long journey back to us. In the meantime, we will huddle together near warm fires until the sun brings us once again her kindling rays, soft winds, and summer rains. In our gathering, we must be ever mindful that behind each one of us is a curious trail that stretches back thousands of years. We were not just remarkably plopped down in the 19th or 20th century to begin something brand new. We are all a work in progress, part of a lineage that goes back through our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our great-great-grandparents. We go all the way back to the very first humans that ever gathered at the solstice to celebrate the sun's return. We are a part of every celebration that has ever taken place in our brief cosmic history. We are intractably linked to every human being that has ever been or ever will be. Their celebrations belong to us. Our celebrations belong to everyone else. We are not just historically linked. Each time we inhale, we breathe in 10 to the 22nd power of raw materials from the universe: carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and the other elements. These elements are used to make our body and our organs. Each time we exhale 10 to the 22nd power of raw materials, elemental atoms, to be used by some other living thing, another person, a tree, a raindrop. We are in a continuous process of exchanging atoms, body parts, if you will, with other living things. These atoms never die. They just keep recirculating through the universe for eternity. Not only are our celebrations timeless, but we are connected to every atom eternally. It's strange to contemplate that within each of us, there may be an atom from the very first man, the first flower, Muhammad, or a molecule from the first wheat being ground to make the first loaf of bread. Just as silly, it's just as silly to think that we're so unique as it is to think that milk comes from the grocery store. You know, we don't come from a single set of parents. We are from all times, from all cultures, from all traditions. And it took everyone along the way to make us exactly who and what we are. Not only is there a trail behind us that winds back through human history, there are also an unmarked trail leading to the future for all human beings yet to come. This idea of being an integral part of human history is not only a historical fact, but it carries with it a responsibility. A responsibility to live decent, productive, and happy lives. And there's a responsibility to teach future generations to think, to question, and to evolve to a higher and higher level of humanity. With this in mind, as we gather to celebrate this year, what should we do differently? The answer, I think, is not much. We should not give up our ancient customs, our mythologies, our folklore, but we should use them as guideposts in our evolving consciousness. When we realize that the days are shorter and the nights grow longer and colder, let us take a moment to realize that our ancestors believed that the sun was really leaving us. They also believed that it would return, so there is a hope for warmth and rebirth in the spring. The great sun god would not forsake us. The sun, S-U-N, later became the sun, S-O-N, and it would return to save us. The Egyptians, the Druids, the Brahmin priests, they tended fires all night long, lighting the pathway for the sun's return. They did not want the sun to lose its way, so their fires lit the path for its safe return. For millennia, our ancestors worshiped the sun god. Eventually, that worship became more earthly and more anthropomorphic until some religions now worship the sun, S-U-N. Know that when you strike a match to the wood in your fireplace, that fire has warmed and protected humankind since our fragile beginning. And it may light the way for the sun's return at dawn. Even today in our modern culture, we are still fascinated by the warm glow of fire. It is one of our links with our dark and lonely past. When you are struck by the contrast of winter trees against gray skies, know that there is a peace in the quiet coldness. Know that this quiet image has been seen by human beings for hundreds of thousands of years. So hold it in reverence and reflection. Let the stillness of barren trees brings to your conscience a reminder of the cycles of life. Birth, infancy, childhood, maturity, aging, and death. This is not just winter. It is a time to hear the whispers from the quiet caverns of your mind and soul. This holiday season, when you haul in the fir, or the Scotch pine, or the cedar, or even if you stand up the artificial, fire-resistant, fiber-optic Kmart tree, this is not just decorations. It is a tradition that goes a long way back on the human trail. The Norse tree worshippers saw the evergreen as a symbol of everlasting life. Evergreen never goes through the winter death. Many cultures, even today, see the evergreen as having psychic power, psychic energy. If you touch the evergreen, it supposedly recharges your energy. So I would ask, have you hugged your evergreen today? When you string up the garland and hang the holly and the cedar branches to add the green and red to your house and home, take a moment to realize that the ancient Romans, Greeks, and pagan tribes placed evergreen over the doorway to ward off evil and to bring good luck. When you do this, feel in touch with the human spirit and know that others have been doing this same thing at this same time of year for at least 10,000 years. We are a part of them, and they are a part of us 10,000 years later. When the Indo-Europeans spread across the globe from northern Asia to the British Isles and in every other direction, they carried with them traditions that still live on. Imagine a cold winter's night and a Druid priest cuts the magical mistletoe from the sacred oak. He made the cut with a silver knife to ensure its purity. To kiss under the mistletoe, held high by the old Druid priest, was to ensure that the marriage would last and would bring forth children. We still seek the mistletoe whenever there is a lovely lad or lassie near. Many Indo-European traditions form the foundation for most of the world's great religions. When we see our tree with colored lights, we must remember that civilizations like Roman cultures and every culture they conquered decorated their evergreens with candles and homemade ornaments. When you burn the Yule log, it was first lit thousands of years before you were born. It lights the night and warms the heart now, just as it did thousands of years ago. Gift giving at the time of the solstice goes back to the beginning of recorded time and further. To give a gift was a symbol of friendship, love, or alliance. Gifts were sometimes offering to apologize and reconciliation for any slight that might have occurred during the year. Gifts give us something to hold on to through the dark winter. It's also a gift to offer a gracious thanks to the giver. The simple act of buying or making a gift and giving it to someone we care about is not garish commercialism. After all, it's been going on since way before the Stone Age. Do not, however, cheat yourself by getting caught up in the vulgar commercialism. Every single religion has its beautiful mythological stories. There is a Native American legend that human beings fell from the stars. The Buddha was born from the side of his virgin mother. The Christian mythology is about the birth of Jesus. This is a story that has been told and celebrated since the year 336 of the current age, Christmas, or Xmas. The X is the ancient symbol for Christ. It was first celebrated in Rome. The practice spread to the far reaches of the conquered empire and now has a global following. December 25th was chosen as the celebration day because it corresponds with other ancient celebrations like Saturnalia. The winter solstice has been a time to reflect on our winter death and rebirth in the spring. There is always hope in the return of the sun, S-U-N, or the sun, S-O-N. There is always hope in the birth of any child. Hope that this child will lead us out of troubled times. It has been so for thousands of years. In the mountains of early Persia, it was said that a child was born, a Savior. He was known as Lord of Lords, King of Kings. He was the way, the truth, and the light. His picture was always drawn with him carrying a lamb on his shoulder. He was the Good Shepherd. He was the mystery God, or the Son of God. His name was Mithras. Later on in the history of the Middle East, a child was born. This child would be known as Lord of Lords, King of Kings, the way, the truth, and the light. His drawing also pictured him with a lamb on his shoulder. He was the Good Shepherd. He was the Savior. Wise men came to his birthbed. A star lit the way. His name was Zoroaster. Later in history, another babe was born. Like those before him, he was born of a virgin. He too would be known as Lord of Lords, King of Kings. He was the way, the truth, and the light. His name was Jesus. Humankind has always looked to the heavens for answers. There have been thousands of gods and dozens of sons of gods. There have been a myriad of virgin births and holy miracles, all symbolic of hope and joy. We have always hoped that our saviors would lead us to peace. It's not that our gods have failed us, for they remind us, even today, that a child may be born that will lead us out of our troubled times. They also remind us that we were once the hope of our parents, and that we are still capable of leading ourselves and others to peace. You and I are still standing on that magical path, one direction leading back to where we came from, and the other direction to an undetermined future. The behaviors we exhibit, the wisdom we display, the lesson that we teach will, of course, determine future generations. If we allow the peace that dwells within us to determine how we treat people of this planet, we may finally fulfill that ancient universal dream. Whether we respect the teachings of Jesus or Muhammad or Buddha, or just have a profound respect for our human potential, we continue to retain the capacity to lead ourselves out of troubled times. Our gods and sons of gods have been symbols of our longing for human decency and ascendancy. Jesus, Muhammad, Mithras, Zoroaster, Buddha, Horus, and the thousands of other gods have been our inspiration and a reflection of our deeper yearnings. Let us lead ourselves out of the wilderness of stupidity and brutality so that our gods were not served in vain. We cannot disconnect ourselves from our past. Neither can we deny our responsibility to the future. Our mythologies are our guideposts on the road to a safer inheritance for future generations. So as we gather and celebrate this winter solstice, we must not harden ourselves to the memory of our very long and very curious journey. We must give a respectful thanks to all cultures, all people, and all human epochs that have preceded us. They are why we are what we are. We must open ourselves to that rich history of our human past. So don't just decorate the tree or string the lights out of habit. Don't just give a gift because I should or because I have to. When you engage in any of these seasonal activities, stop and reflect on how this has been done for centuries and how we are linked to the ancestors who did the same things thousands of years before us. And another thing, don't smugly assume that this celebration is only for Christians. This time of year has been celebrated, people, for at least 100,000 years before Christianity. Anthropologists and archaeologists have found evidence that suggests that there may have been as many as 100,000 different religions in as many years. Christmas belongs to everyone. We still place hope in the birth of every new child. This is everyone's Ramadan. Time to put aside food and activities to find that inner peace and hear our soul whisper to us. A time to reflect on and overcome evil thoughts. This is our Hanukkah, a time to be thankful that we have not been defeated by our enemies, and a time to celebrate that our human lamp did not go out in times of peril. This is our Kwanzaa. Perhaps we all did start out on the dangerous savanna plains of Africa. If we are in fact all descendants of Lucy, then we are all African American. Some of us just left Africa long before others. We are all the Norse tree worshipers. We celebrate the beautiful trees. We are all the ancient Romans decorating with our evergreens. We are all the pagans hanging our holly in our greenery. We are all the ancient Yule log burners lighting the fire against the cold night. We are all the mystic priest lighting the way for the sun's return. We are the druids kissing and laughing under the mistletoe. We all have a belief in a little magic this time of year And we are all celebrating exactly the same way that our ancestors did. We are the descendants of everyone who has ever walked on the human path. All their deeds and misdeeds, their successes and failures, their traditions and myths, their hopes and dreams, they all belong to each of us. It is time to gather and to celebrate. Let us celebrate our bountiful history. Let us celebrate each other. And let us celebrate ourselves. We have come a long way on our curious journey. May we continue to have a profound curiosity about our past and our uncharted future. My fervent hope is that we will leave to our children a wiser, saner, more enlightened world than we inherited. So to you, all of you, I wish you all a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, a peaceful Ramadan, a joyful Kwanzaa. And for our entire species, I hope we continue to be the questioners, the searchers, the wanderers, the dreamers, and the sky watchers. Happy solstice.